Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
We're going to be reading a story that focuses on a very intriguing former member of Torchwood who was introduced at the end of Season 1.
Ooh.
And we're also going to be reading from an author that we've read before.
Okay.
But it was oh so very long ago.
Right.
We're going to be reading The Twilight Streets by Gary Russell.
Ah!
And judging by the cover, this may very well form an interesting clown duology with Shroud of Sorrow.
Right, okay.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great, Chris. Happy February.
Yes, indeed. Happy February. Yes.
And I'll be going to Gallifrey later this weekend, so I'm super excited about that.
Ah.
This will be my first time attending since 2019,
Yep.
which was the one with Catherine Tate and William Russell and Carol Ann Ford. And this time I will get to meet Joda.
Yeah.
So, very exciting stuff. And Chris Chibnall will be there too.
Oh, poor Chris.
So, listeners, if you see me out and about, do say hi.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of general podcast news. We now also have a YouTube channel where you can find some of our earlier episodes, non-monetized, of course. Chris and I do this without witness or reward, as they say. So do
Yes.
check that out.
We do this for the love of it? I think it's for the love of it, isn't it?
Yes. We have some Doctor Who book news to share. There's been a 5th title announced in the Penguin Crossover Classics line. This is Josephine and the Argonauts, tentatively due out in August of 2023, written by Paul Mars, and this features the 3rd Doctor and Jo. And feels very Time Monster to me, I think.
Yes. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it does, and we still haven't gotten the 4th book in the line, but who knows, maybe they'll be published simultaneously. And with 2023 being the year of the 60th anniversary, it's important to note that it's also the 50th year of Target novelizations, as the first one in the range proper was published in 1973. So we have some new or semi-new targets that have been announced for July. We've got Kerblam by Pete McTighe, Planet of the Ood by Keith Temple, The Zygon Invasion by Peter Harness, and this was originally supposed to come out last year, but he needed more time because it's a novelization of both parts. And we have The Waters of Mars by Phil Ford, which very much looking forward to that one and hoping that he kind of expands on the Time Lord Victorious bit and maybe ties that into some of the other books with that infamous line. And then we also have Warrior's Gate by Stephen Gallagher. So this is the revised text that had come out in audio with a bunch of additions that didn't make it into the John Lydecker version. And it's also going to include the continuing story of Romana and Laszlo in the Kairos Ring, which was an audio, so it'll have a short story. And then it's going to end, Stephen Gallagher's including a new piece called The Little Book of Fate. So for the first time, it's going to be a Target novel with 2 short stories tacked on at the end there.
Cool.
All right, I think that brings us to Show and Tell. Chris, what do you have for us this month?
Yes, what do I have? Last night, we decided we wanted to have a bit more Matt Smith in our lives.
That seems to be a recurring theme with you and Lauren.
Yes, yeah. Well, she does have a bit of a Matt Smith obsession. So we watched Morbius.
Oh,
So
how was that?
I went in with my expectations very low. and I quite enjoyed it. Matt Smith is chewing the scenery. left, right, and centre. I think it's fun if you enjoy Matt Smith, particularly Matt Smith as a villain. Yeah, I think it's actually worth your time. I mean, we didn't pay any actual money for it because it was like on a subscription service. So it was enjoyable. He was very funny. He plays a delicious villain. And we were kind of thinking that he might be a good shout in like a few years' time to be like a Bond villain.
Huh.
Maybe.
Would...
Or a kind of like an agent gone rogue or something like that. That seems to be very much in his wheelhouse these days.
So is that movie set in the MCU continuity, or is it kind of in Sony's Venomverse sort of deal?
It appears to be in the Venomverse. There's some subtle references and then a very unsubtle thing that happens in the post-credits. Huh. Makes you realise something, possibly tying up for a movie that, given that Morbius didn't do so well at the box office, might not actually happen. But yeah, there are some very subtle references. Like there is a reference to a New York school for gifted teenagers, which I would say subtle. I mean, like I instantly got it. But yes.
Well, unfortunately, it seems to follow on with Matt Smith's run of luck when it comes to playing villains in franchises that kind of get canceled after the first movie. But
yeah. And apparently Karen Gillan had sort of said he'd been a bit wary of going back into franchises, and Karen Gillan said, "Oh, God, you should do Marvel movies. They're great fun." And he goes and does that one. But he's clearly enjoying himself. So he had a lovely time.
Maybe we'll check that out one of these days.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. So how about you, Matt?
Well, I was going to do a little mini review of the Billis Manger audio adventures from Big Finish, given that he's kind of the villain of the piece for the book we're reading this month, which, by the way, is The Twilight Streets by Gary Russell, a Torchwood novel. And it's not really a spoiler because Murray Melvin's on the cover. But that, fortunately, didn't pan out. They're sitting in my queue to listen to, but... I didn't have a chance to listen to them. I did watch The Tyrant King, which was a 1968 Thames Television 6-part story, which starred Murray Melvin as the sinister Uncle Jerry. And it's kind of crazy that he's still with us at 90 years old. And he was also in Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon in 1975. But that didn't come to pass. So instead you get a console room recap. So another console room has come and gone. This was the 10th anniversary and featured Sophie Aldred, fresh from appearing in Power of the Doctor, as well as Tommy Knight, who played Luke on Sarah Jane Adventures. And I had a wonderful little chat with both Sophie and Tommy during the console room reception dinner, which, by the way, if you ever get a chance to go to console room, they have a fantastic guest of honor reception and serve lots of great food and drink and stuff. But it turns out, and this is a bit of a news scoop here, Tommy Knight is going to be appearing in the upcoming Ranny spinoff with Big Finish, which I don't think's been announced anywhere. So some breaking news there. But otherwise, he's left acting and he's now working on being a freelance web developer. He turned 30 at the convention, and so we had a bit of a birthday party for him, which is nice. And he's a total nerd. Almost in a Will Wheaton way. In fact, he was playing the game Elden Rings, and he recognized Angie Mohinder's voice in the game as he was playing, so that was kind of fun. He and Sophie Aldred decided to go snowshoeing in the nature preserve next to the hotel, and got lost after about 2 hours. So that was a bit of a scramble, but made for some good stories on panels and stuff. In terms of items that he kept from the Sarah Jane set, he kept the Nightmare Man mask, so the trickster mask, which apparently grew really moldy in a drawer, so he had to throw it away. And then he also kept a can of Bubble Shock and a panel from K9 that kept falling off during recording.
Oh.
And then Sophie was very glad that her episode, The Power of the Doctor, finally beat Coronation Street on ITV. And I asked her how she felt about At Childhood's End and kind of its continuity in light of The Power of the Doctor. So let's have a listen to her response.
So the first time we met was on Zoom. And he said, would you do me the great honour of being in the centenary episode of Doctor Who? I mean, I just said wild horses wouldn't stop me from being in it. And he said, so what do you think Ace is like now? You know, what does she look like? What do you think she does? And I said, well, I think we're very lucky to have had the trailer that Pete McTighe did for the season 26 box set. I think that's exactly what Ace would be doing now. And then also the book that Mike Tucker and Steve Cole and I wrote, I'd like to use that as a reference as well. I think she'd still be wearing Doc Martens. So we had a really good talk about that.
Hi. Sophie, you had mentioned taking some inspiration from the novel you had written at Childhood's End in terms of your appearance in Power of the Doctor. As part of that, in the novel, Ace meets the 13th Doctor in a different way. At any point, did you feel like having a kind of an alternate scene in Power of the Doctor changed the novel, or was it just yet another alternate version of Ace?
I think it's just another strike of the anvil if you've read the novel. It's Ace has so many timelines, which I really like. I like the idea that she's, there's the TV timeline, there's the Big Finish timeline, there's the timeline with Hex, there's the timeline with Rain, there's the timeline. So I think we can safely assume that this was a particular timeline and that the novel one is valid as well.
Great, thank you.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
That has to be really satisfying to be able to have, you've raised this character.
It's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know anyone else who's had that opportunity, really, to be constantly reinventing this character and associated with the same character for so long.
I don't believe we touch on it is the origins story. And can you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yes, well, my agent got in touch with me and said, would you be interested, Penguin Random House, I think because At Childhood's End had done so well, would you be interested in writing an origin story for Ace, a short story? And I thought, yeah, that would be great, actually. And funnily enough, I knew exactly where it was going to be, of course, because it was going to be in Perivale, and it was all so vivid to me that it really almost did write itself. The only thing was I was thinking about the character at the end. I won't spoil it, but anyway, I was wondering whether to bring the Master into it, and then I tried that, and it didn't quite work, so I sort of had to go back and rework it. But I was so pleased at how it came out, and then Katie did one too for Joe Grant. So for anybody who doesn't know, this is a new book that's come out quite recently called Origin Stories. And it's short stories about companions and their youth before they met the Doctor. And we could just write whatever we wanted. Yeah, I was really pleased with how it came out, actually.
And I think that's just a great way to look at it, how she phrased it there, just another strike of the anvil from that story.
Yeah.
Really cool. And then I also got to meet listener Jeremy Bement from the Panel to Panel podcast. So that was cool to meet him in person as well. So fantastic convention, and look forward to next year as well.
Brilliant. How cold was it? I gather it's been really quite cold.
Yeah, that weekend it wasn't too bad. It was in the 20s or low 30s Fahrenheit.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now it's -2 degrees Fahrenheit, which I'm trying to figure out what that is in -19 Celsius.
Yeah. Cold.
So yeah, it's sometimes Consular Room coincides with a January thaw in Minnesota. Sometimes it doesn't. So It's kind of a hit or miss when it comes to the weather there.
Yeah. The other week I was walking to work in -5 Celsius, and that felt quite cold. Thank you very much.
The hotel is nice, though. It's nice and warm, and it's like I was saying, it's right next to a nature preserve. So if it does get warm enough, it's fun to go out and see the wildlife. And I guess Tommy encountered a group of deer, so that was he said a cool and magical moment. And then he fell over into a snowbank and got snow up his sock, and then he said he felt very Minnesotan having to walk back to the hotel in a soggy sock. So
Right. Okay. Right. So talking of snowbanks makes me it brings back memories, maybe not fond memories of last month's book and the clowns and the snowbank.
Speaking of which, there's a few clowns in this month's The Twilight Streets. So this is by Gary Russell, and of course we've read Big Bang Generation by him previously. And in the last few years, Gary's been producing missing episode animations. He's one of a team of about 2 or 3 different teams that has been working on the animations. He's worked on Fury from the Deep, Galaxy 4, and The Abominable Snowmen. And he also, of course, directed David Tennant in both The Infinite Quest and Dreamland, 2 of the animated 10th Doctor adventures. And when I think of Gary Russell, the first thing that comes to mind is his work with Big Finish.
Yeah.
And when I think of like the 2 Big Finish eras of, the Gary Russell era and the Nick Briggs era, I tend to like Big Finish's earlier stuff more. And maybe it's because there were fewer releases, so I felt like I had more of a handle on where the story is going.
Yeah.
Kind of more of a cohesive narrative. And now there's box set around every corner, and it just it's hard to keep up with it all, let's just say that.
Yeah, I have listened to, I think, the first 50, and from then on it just gets very sporadic, which is no reflection on quality. It's more a reflection on getting overwhelmed by the amount of material. But like Gary Russell was the Doctor Who magazine reviewer for several years, late 80s into the 90s, and I first encountered Gary Russell in The Famous Five because he was a child actor.
That's right, he was.
And I forget which one of the Famous Five he played, but he was a regular in that.
Cool. So this novel was released in March of 2008, and it is the 6th of 19 Torchwood novels published, and this is Gary's only Torchwood novel. It features 24 untitled chapters, which is a bit unusual because it's been my experience that most Gary Russell books have chapter titles relating to song lyrics or album titles.
Yes.
And the book is dedicated to Scott Hancock, who was a Big Finish producer and now works for Bad Wolf on the new series as script editor, which is a role that Gary previously performed during the David Tennant era. And we read a bit of Scott Hancock's work in the Tales of Terror collection a few months back. He wrote the 7th and 9th Doctor stories for that, including the Patchwork Perio. And then, so this Torchwood book takes place between Season 2's Meet and Reset episodes because Reese is aware of Torchwood and Owen is still alive and Gwen is planning her wedding, which we see in Something Borrowed. And then on the cover, we have Yanto depicted with his face half in clown makeup. And of course, Murray Melvin as Billis Manger as well. And it's kind of interesting that we see playing cards on the cover, including the Ace of Hearts and the Jack of Hearts, because in one of Gary's previous novels, I think Divided Loyalties, also featured playing cards on the cover. I think we can probably jump right in.
Yeah, I would say so.
So the book begins with a bit of a prologue. So in August of 1941, children are being evacuated to Cardiff during the London Blitz. And Captain Jack Harkness is kind of working for Torchwood at this time. There's probably 2 or 3 Jacks in the United Kingdom at this time. Maybe a 4th one that's buried under, like in a coffin or something too, yes, if I remember right. Yeah. So a version of Captain Jack collects a young boy at Cardiff's train station who's a redheaded child whose name tag reads A. Neil, which is an anagram of alien. And who speaks like a senseless Cockney word salad with lots of govnas and stuff like that. And Jack delivers the alien child to the Torchwood hub. Apparently the alien was sent over from Torchwood 1 in London. And since he has a few days to himself, he tries to enter Tratari, which is a certain Cardiff neighborhood that seems barred to him. So like he's physically unable to enter the neighborhood. And once again, and he's tried this a few times over the years, and this time he again becomes nauseous the moment he sets foot in Tratari. And is that how we're saying it? Tratari?
Yeah. Tratari. Yeah, it's not a real place, so we can say it how we like.
Okay. And he's forced to lay low for the next few days. And in his absence, his future sort of enemy antagonist, Billis Manger, who's the character played by Murray Melvin, who showed up at the end of season 1 of Torchwood for 2 episodes and then mysteriously vanished. He reappears in a deserted house in this neighborhood and sends a message to Dr. Tilda Brennan, who is running Torchwood 3. And when Jack returns, he finds that Brennan has performed an autopsy on the alien boy killing him and overpowered the rest of her team when they objected. And her eyes are glowing white like she's possessed. And Brennan tells Jack she has a message for him, but then she's briefly distracted, so Jack shoots her in the head before she can deliver the message. And like the Torchwood series, this book is a little bit on the violent and, shall we say, perhaps horny side. It seems to be in the narrative. Greg Bishop picks up Brennan's diary. Greg Bishop is kind of like a Yanto type in the 1940s who also has a relationship with Jack. And he's hoping to find a clue to Dr. Brennan's behavior, but inside all the pages are blank. And then Greg suddenly bursts into flame and immolates to ash within seconds. And then a message appears on the diary's blank pages, a message warning Jack that this is revenge for something that's going to happen in the future. So a rather ominous start to our Torchwood folks.
Yes. I mean, you were saying tone-wise, I think that, it's slightly akin to a New Adventures, but I would say possibly less horny than New Adventures, maybe. So, this is not one for younger readers.
And some of the references are a little, it took me a couple times in rereading for them to stick out. Like, for example, in this 1940s version of Torchwood, it's mentioned that Alan Turing had dropped off a computer at the hub, and he said it's to thank Jack for something. And they don't say what.
Yeah.
Things like that.
You kind of suspect, but yeah. So in present day, by which we mean 2008, which makes me feel old when I think that that's 15 years ago. Anyway, Jack tells his team he's taking a few days off, and Owen slips up, and Owen has to admit to Yanto that he sometimes borrows the SUV whilst Jack is away. The last time he did so, he got covered in mud, and Owen got Yanto to clean it up by claiming the mud contained alien spores. Quietly plotting his revenge, Yanto follows Jack to Tritari, having learnt of Jack's strange relationship with the neighbourhood from the Torchwood archives. And so Jack's reluctant to discuss it, but Yanto insists that Jack's friends want to help him. Back at the hub, Yanto conducts some research and learns that Tritari was created by Victorian mine owner Gideon Apatari as a home for his workers and their families. And there's a big old history of this kind of thing in the UK, like the Cadbury's factory in Birmingham as the town of Bourneville. But so Tritari has a history of hauntings and unexplained fires, and reports indicate that Gideon Apatari wasn't buried in his own grave. So Tosh heads out to Tritari to scan it for rift activity, finds that it's been undergoing some major renovation and reconstruction. So there's a kind of a building scheme manager, Ifan Daffyd, who gives Tosh a quick tour and tells her that his team are fitting the neighbourhood out with state-of-the-art wireless routers and street lighting, without disturbing any historically significant sites. And the work is due to be completed within a day, and the admin staff at City Hall have planned a street party to celebrate, which shows amazing faith in civic projects finishing on time. Tosh discovers that the reconstruction is being overseen by Billis Manager, but before she can warn her friends, Billis himself arrives and knocks her unconscious.
And I'm very glad that this focuses on Billis, because I feel like he was one of those hanging threads from, season 1 of Torchwood that was never resolved. And I may have been wrong last month when I said that he was a former member of Torchwood, although that may actually be the case. I don't know, because I haven't listened to the Big Finish audios yet, and there's some details given in this book that Billis kind of has access to all the different iterations of Torchwood. And in terms of Torchwood in general, I feel like some of my favorite Torchwood stories are kind of the more fantastical ones, like Small Worlds with the fairies, or From Out of the Rain, where the carnival comes to town. Anything that evokes Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury, or The Wish Giver by Bill Brittain piques my interest. So that's one of the reasons I picked this book.
And I quite like Torchwood when it leans into the history of Cardiff and just history in general, which also this book is doing a bit of.
Yeah.
That's what I discovered.
There's lots of details about Cardiff and the Bay Area in this book. And I think when Gary was writing this, he was working on the show and living in Cardiff at the time. So the descriptions ring very authentic and contemporary. And he gives his opinion about the quality of different restaurants.
Yes.
So
yeah, as somebody who lived in Cardiff for a wee bit, I can't speak for the exact restaurants because I was there when I was a teenager in the mid-90s. But I was like, the geography stacks up with how it is in my mind. So, yeah.
So then Gwen meets her fiance Reese for lunch and is horrified when he hands her a business card that Billis Manger asked him to pass on to her, with a written note referencing her as the Widow Williams, which is rather cheeky of Billis, and telling Reese to go find his friends and stay with them. Gwen rushes back to the hub. And meanwhile, Jack visits City Hall to speak with Idris Hopper, who is a character that Jack met briefly in the first season episode Boomtown, the same day that Mayor of Cardiff, Margaret Blaine, a.k.a. the Slitheen, disappeared. And Idris later spotted Jack in the Oval Basin, which is kind of the courtyard in front of Roald Dahl Plaza, and was so determined to get answers from him that he saw through the perception filter surrounding the kind of invisibility lift that they have and starts yelling at him. And Jack tries to slip Idris some retcon, which is that amnesia pill, but the pill didn't work on him, and he's never forgiven Jack for trying to trick him and erase his memories. And nevertheless, after he kind of airs all his grievances and ends up snogging Jack, Idris, he agrees to give Jack all of the information he has on the Tritari redevelopment project, and that's how Jack learns of Billis Manger's involvement. So it's kind of like you have all the different members of Torchwood scattered and split up and doing stuff. Almost like this feels like a lull in between episodes, like what they get up to when the riff isn't active. It's kind of how it's framed up. But then like Billis is intervening with each of them in some kind of personal way.
Yeah, it's almost like on a comic crossover where you suddenly have the villain of the crossover interacting with each of the heroes and their own titles. Yeah. So Yanto, meanwhile, has discovered a police report from 1986 in which 4 students broke into 6 Coburg Street in Tritari to investigate mysterious claims about the house. And only 2 of the students came out again, Owen and Janet. And this is actually where we have this month's reading. Read for us by Yorkie, a friend of mine. And so this tells Owen's version of events as a police witness statement.
Let's have a listen.
Extract from the testimony of student Owen Garrett, 1986. In attendance, D.I. Lawrence and W.D.C. Meredith. With Garrett was his tutor, Professor Edward Nichols. Legal representation was waived.
Just a bit of crap, really, all that mediums and Doris Stokes stuff, but Janet, she was scared, I think, so I put my foot down, said no. So anyway, that night, we got in. I don't know who actually got us in. I was a bit late because I had to check the camera out the student union, so the other 3 were there with sleeping bags and beer and stuff by the time I arrived. I set the camcorder by the door so it took in the whole of the, living room, I suppose. It meant we were on camera all the time. I turned it on around 11 when Michelle went out to get the Chinese, and I stocked up on 90-minute tapes, so it meant one of us had to wake up every so often to change tapes. So we sorted out a rota. I said I'd stay up first till the first tape ran out. Michelle would do the next and so on. I sat up while they slept, changed the first tape, but was still wide awake. So let Michelle sleep on. I had a book for class to get through, which was fine. I changed the second tape about 2 and thought I'd wake Michelle up. But I must have dropped off because the next thing I knew, Marty and Michelle were giggling to each other. And it was about 4:30. And he had the bloody Ouija board and was moving the glass around with his fingers. God knows what Michelle thought Marty was doing. It was so obvious he was spelling "I am a ghost" or whatever she thought it was funny. I watched them for a few minutes and hoped Janet wouldn't wake up or she'd freak. Then I noticed the camera wasn't recording, so I whispered to them, but they ignored me. So I got up, and that's when they looked at me, straight at me, and that was when it must have happened. God, it must have been then, and I didn't understand. I didn't notice their eyes at first. I saw the smiles. I can see the smiles now. I mean, not really smiles, something so cruel, so twisted. Then I saw the white eyes. Not just white, but like bright lights. I'm telling you, it was freaky. I thought perhaps something was reflecting into their eyes because I couldn't see the pupils or anything, just white light, I suppose. But there was nothing else on, nothing to reflect. Janet woke up. I know that because I heard her swear and yell at them about the Ouija board. And that's when I was really scared. Yeah, scared. Because they ignored us both then and went back to the board. And I'm telling you, mate, that glass was moving by itself. And it spelled out 2 words. I don't know what they meant. Torch and wood. I thought it meant they were going to burn the building down. And I can still hear Michelle now speaking, but it wasn't her voice, you know? Something else spoke. I don't know, through her? Hold on, let me think about this. Can I have something to drink, please?
Tape stops, then resumes. D.I. Lawrence re-identifies everyone on the tape and states the time and date. See separate report for exact timings.
Okay, thanks, yeah. I'm okay, right. So the voice, Janet is well freaked now, and I'll be honest, mate, I'd almost wet myself. That voice, so cold, it felt like we were in a freezer suddenly, an abattoir or something. And Janet and I staring at them, our mates, and Michelle spoke to us, and it made no sense. She just said about the darkness and Phyllis and the lights. It made no sense. And Janet and me, we ran, just got the hell out of there. But we tried to get to the front door, and that's when we saw the ghost. I saw the ghost. Janet says she's not sure what she saw, but I'm telling you, it was a bloody ghost. A bloke sort of there and not there. I'm not talking the whole white sheet Scooby-Doo thing, but a bloke stood there. I could see he was speaking, shouting almost, but couldn't hear anything he said. And we were out of there. But this is important because I think, yeah, I'm sure sitting here now, I think it was saying what Michelle had been saying. The mouth. I'm picturing it. Darkness and the lights. I'm sure that's what it was yelling. And then you lot turned up the next day at uni and arrested me. But I'm telling you, that's what happened. We didn't hurt them or anything. Why would I kill Michelle? We were together, if you know what I mean. I wouldn't do that to her. Where's Janet? She must be able to tell you this. She was uni too, wasn't she? You must have got her when you got me. She'll tell you they weren't dead when we ran away from them.
Thank you so much, Yorkie, for reading that.
Yes, Yorkie has nothing to plug apart from the milk of human kindness and playing things forward. So,
excellent. Well, thanks you so much for reading that.
yeah, so as we've heard, Michelle, Owen's girlfriend, had been speaking of darkness, the light, and a woman called Phyllis. And the police are forced to let both Owen and Janet go due to lack of evidence, but they're convinced that the students had set their friends on fire. But when Jack and Gwen return to the hub, Yanto realises who the ghostly old man was that the students had been occasionally seeing. And Michelle wasn't saying Phyllis, but Billis.
And kind of creepy when the Ouija board starts spelling out Torchwood.
Yes!
So jumping back to Captain Jack, he's been unable to enter that neighborhood since before he had begun working for Torchwood. And Yanto and Owen suggest that the force keeping him out might be related somehow to his past as a time traveler. Before they can investigate that theory, however, Billis materializes in the hub and offers to trade Tosh for the opportunity to resurrect Abaddon, which was that big kind of godlike
devil type thing, yes.
Yeah, which kind of looked like a reuse of the Beast CGI from the Doctor Who story that season, but that big thing. So Jack refuses, and Billis vanishes again. It's kind of interesting that Billis appears and disappears, and it's hinted that he may be able to traverse dimensions or is jumping from different reality planes in terms of like what his special abilities are.
Yeah, he's basically Q, isn't he?
Kind of, yeah, but he's kind of in service to
Yes.
Abaddon. And there's more to that too, which is going to get revealed, as the narrative unfolds.
Yes.
So then Jack refuses that trade and Billis vanishes again. And playing a hunch, Jack visits the vaults where Billis had murdered an alternate version of Reese back in the season 1 finale, which they managed to avert that timeline. And he finds Billis waiting down in the basement watching Janet the Weevil. Billis gives Jack a cryptic warning about Owen's future and tells Jack that Tosh is at 6 Coburg Street, which is one of the houses in the Tritari neighborhood.
Or it's the house that the kids broke into. In
The
the
same
80s.
one,
Yeah.
from the dramatic reading, and vanishes again. And then for a moment, Jack has a vision of Greg Bishop, who is the kind of the 1940s Yanto, warning him about the light and the darkness. And then Greg vanishes as well. And then the only sign that anyone's been there is a note stuck to Janet's cell with the phrase "Revenge for the Future" written in blood.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tosh awakens to find herself in what appears to be Billis's shop, a stitch in time. And Billis reveals that he suspended her between moments of time so that he can reveal her potential to her. So he grabs her hands and gives her a vision of a future in which she and Owen are married and in charge of Torchwood, in which Jack has been sealed in a glass cube and is wired up to the rift manipulator, giving Tosh and Owen control over the rift and the ability to take over the world.
And this glass cube is kind of in the same spot where the TARDIS had landed, where the perception filter is. It's just like suspended like in the ground in that same spot.
Yeah. A ragged Yanto bursts into Torchwood's new headquarters and shoots Owen in the head, and security guards, reacting a moment too late, riddle Yanto of bullets. The vision ends as the future Tosh orders her guards to take Owen to her office. And in the present day, or 2008, Tosh's body then fills with light. As Billis warns her, there is a price to be paid for making deals with the light and the dark. So it's getting a bit Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Ever so slightly.
And throughout this section of the novel, we do get a few more excerpts of like police reports and newspaper clippings, and all of that felt very kind of House of Leaves inspired, where you're piecing together what happened, with some of these fragments.
Yeah.
And one of those flashbacks includes a flashback to just before Gwen joined the Torchwood team. So you have Susie Costello, just recently appeared in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, Indri of Arma, where they have a scene where the events of Boomtown are playing out above their heads. And Jack is telling them all to, as earthquakes are going on, to stay huddled down in the hub and to not go out there, because that Captain Jack is 150 years older than the one with the Ninth Doctor on the surface.
Yeah.
Some fun little moments there where, they play around with time a little bit. So then Gwen discovers that Billis Manger, though not a member of Torchwood, has been granted official access to all of Torchwood's facilities. And I like that Torchwood 2 and 4 get mentions here, and we learn that the guy who's out in Torchwood 2 in Glasgow is named Archie. And I was thinking, we're going to meet Archie in this book, but we never do. He does appear in some Big Finish stories played by Guy Adams, and he does first get named in this book. And something tells me that like the Big Finish audios and the book range for Torchwood are a little bit more closely linked than, say, Big Finish's Doctor Who range, just because there are far fewer Torchwood novels than Doctor Who books.
So is he called Archie in
Big Finish? Yeah, he is.
Okay.
So Jack's unable to contact Archie because this might not have anything to do with the current crisis, but eccentric Archie has little grasp of modern technology, and I think in Big Finish is revealed to have been born in like the 1860s and has like extended his lifespan. So he doesn't do email very well. And He once accidentally revealed the existence of the Loch Ness Monster by sending a photograph to the wrong person, and it got published in Glasgow's newspaper. Jack again visits Idris Hopper, the mayor's secretary, while Gwen and Yanto head out back to the Tertari neighborhood, and Owen remains at the hub to test a sample of Jack's blood for any sort of like chronon particles or time travel elements that might explain why he can't make his way into that neighborhood. And on the way to Tertari, Gwen tries to cheer Yanto up by asking him about his relationship with Jack, but Yanto reveals that his bisexuality makes him feel awkward and alienated from everyone around him. So I thought that was kind of an interesting scene, especially given the later, kind of a similar conversation that Yanto has in episode 1 of Children of Earth, talking about how Jack's kind of the only guy he's fallen in love with, and Yanto was kind of saying like how he wanted to avoid labels. But I was surprised at how casually Gwen brings up Lisa, as she was one of the people that shot and killed her. She's like, remember Lisa, you're bi, right? I'm just like, oh my god. Oh, that's Gwen for you.
Yeah, maybe you could discuss Cyberwoman with Chris Chibnall. I'm sure he'd be up for that.
If no one else asks him about it, maybe I will. What were you thinking, Chris? Oh.
Yeah, I showed a still of Cyberwoman to a friend of mine who has watched Doctor Who but hasn't watched any Torchwood, and her response was, "Good God."
And maybe on the page it was, maybe there was something.
Yes.
Had we had like a partially, like the lone Cybermen from the end of Jodie's era, like had Lisa been portrayed more like that, I'm sure, but with high heels and the form-fitting bustier and all of that, probably not. So Yanto and Gwen are able to enter the neighborhood with no ill effects, but they suddenly freeze in position as Billis steps out of that same house, that 6 Coburg Street, and Tosh emerges with him, her face half painted with clown makeup. Gwen and Yanto begin to fill up with that same sort of mysterious light, as if they're also getting possessed. And then back at the hub, Owen visits the vaults to vent his frustrations to the trapped Janet the Weevil. And there's some hint that Owen has a bit of the Weevil about him, which I think there's a Torchwood episode, is it Combat, that kind of ties into that.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I think that's what that was alluding to, and I'm not sure that episode had come out by this point. Maybe it's hard to remember. It's been a long time since I've watched any Torchwood. But Owen has kind of a eureka moment, and where he realizes that Jack's been kept out of Tertari because it's being set up as a trap for him, and it doesn't have anything to do with him being a former time traveler, and this trap is finally being sprung. And I'm not sure how Owen comes to that conclusion, but he does. And before Owen can contact Jack, Billis appears again and captures Owen as well. So he's collecting the whole Torchwood set.
Jack, meanwhile, knowing that Idris Hopper is a bit of a bookworm, asked them to take a look at Tilda Brennan's mysteriously blank diary. And Idris promptly points out the obvious. It's not blank. The entries have been written in invisible ink. So Idris agrees to try deciphering it, but warns Jack it's going to take probably about 3 hours. Jack leaves them to it, but then has another vision of Greg Bishop, the 1940s Yanto, warning him that the team has been captured. So Jack rushes back to the hub to find Billis Manger is there and it's locked him out. And so Billis lures him to a bar at the Millennium Center, where he reveals that his god Abaddon served even higher powers, and crucially, that the light and the dark were freed when Jack destroyed Abaddon.
Is that a reference to like the white and black guardian? Because I don't think it's ever made explicit in the text, but that's where my mind went when I read that. But
Yeah, I must say, I was getting a little bit of a white and black guardian kind of vibe, yeah. But as you say, it's not explicitly called out. But all will be revealed tomorrow when Jack is finally permitted to enter Tertari. And Billis vanishes. And so Jack climbs to the roof of the Millennium Stadium to brood, as is his wont, because, so many people, he likes to go up to a really high point and just go out there and look moody.
when Matt and I visited Cardiff and we ended up parking our rental car like at the top of a car park or whatever, Matt did go kind of stand on the edge and had like a flowing coat, and he did a Captain Jack impersonation for a moment. Seemed very appropriate.
Yeah. So whilst up there, Jack sees light and dark energy playing around the stage of antenna. And as Cardiff experiences a temporary blackout, the face of Greg Bishop materializes in the energy and tells Jack that the answer lies in the diary. Meanwhile, Idris finishes his work and visits the information kiosk. And Billis is waiting there, and Idris, unaware as to who Billis is, gives him a message to pass on to Jack.
Yeah, and the information kiosk, that's like the kind of the Torchwood front office,
yes,
where they get pizza deliveries and stuff, and on the outside of which is Yanto's shrine now.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we have another flashback, and this time we go back to 1876, where on the streets of Chitauri, Gideon Terry, so this mining conglomerate businessman guy, witnesses a cosmic confrontation between two demons, Abaddon and Pwickham, or I'm not sure. There's no vowels in that word.
It's Welsh.
PWCCM.
Yes.
Pwickham. So these two beasts sink back into the earth after their battle, and their human servants, who are identical twins, Billis and Cafford?
Cafford.
Yeah. Identical twins Billis and Cafford Manger seem to merge into one being before Gideon's eyes. And Billis tells Gideon to write about this incident in his diary and to keep it safe from those who would take it from him, particularly an organization called Torchwood, which he says will one day destroy the future. Gideon does as Billis requests and arranges for his diary to be buried with him when he dies.
So, back in 2008, as day dawns, Jack returns to Chitauri, where the street party is in full swing, and he sees Owen and Yanto dressed as clowns and mingling with partygoers. So Jack decides to push himself through the kind of like the nausea barrier, which finally gives way for him. So he's actually managed to properly enter Chitauri, and Billis is waiting for him on Coburg Street, where he invites Jack to enter number 6, the house that appears to be the centre of all this, and discuss a matter of revenge. Idris Hopper, meanwhile, the mayor's assistant, arrives in Chitauri, unsure quite why he's gone there, and unaware that the street performers at the party are Gwen, Yanto and Tosh, who have been mesmerised by Billis, and they've been given visions of the future.
And one of these possible future visions that they receive is that Owen briefly opens and closes the rift, just long enough to grasp its potential to change the world. And when he claims he has nothing else to live for, Tosh kisses him, and the power that possessed Owen when he looked into the rift passes into her as well. And although Gwen is not fully possessed, she is pregnant with Reese's child by this time, and the hormones raging in her body leave her vulnerable to the power's influence. She thus stands by and allows Owen and Tosh to overpower Jack and wire him into the rift manipulator, which is kind of what we saw earlier where he was powering it, using his limitless life energy to harness the power of the rift. And with this at their disposal, the three of them use the alien technology in the vaults to take over the world, uniting it in the name of the Torchwood Empire. Which, knowing Owen, Tosh, and Gwen, I don't think they have the wherewithal to do that, personally. But when Yanto protests, they destroy the hub and move their base of operations to another part of the city. And Yanto contacts Reese and manages to convince him that Gwen is under an alien influence and promises to ensure her safety in exchange for the security codes that he needs to get into the new Torchwood headquarters. And Yanto keeps his promise and waits until Gwen is giving birth in the hospital before he attacks Torchwood headquarters, shooting Owen and himself killed by Tasha's guards. So it's quite a crazy alternate future scene there.
Yes, somewhat. So back in 2008, Billis explains to Jack that the elemental forces of light and dark are at war within the rift, and the demons, Abaddon and Puckham, are their champions. And when Jack killed Abaddon, this gave the Dark the upper hand, and so Torchwood's actions in the future will enable the Dark to escape from the rift and take over the world, which is a bit of a twist.
Yeah.
Billis has stored some light in Gideon's diary, which Gideon hid for him until the time was right. And Greg Bishop died back in 1941, partly as an act of preemptive revenge for what Jack would do in the future, and partly because Greg simply got too close to the light and was incinerated by it. Billis says he now needs Jack's help to release the rest of the light back into the rift and trap the Dark in a secure wooden box, restoring the balance of the elements.
Yeah, so a bit of a twist here where Billis is claiming or turning out to not be evil this time, which was a little confusing for me, but
yes.
Apparently this is Billis's way of doing something good while still getting his jabs in at a Jack and team.
Yes.
So Jack doesn't believe Billis's story until he walks out of the house to see that everyone attending the party, including his teammates from Torchwood, have now been possessed by the light and the dark that had lain dormant beneath Chitauri since 1876. And Billis grants Jack the vision that his friends are experiencing, that same vision of the Torchwood Empire and Yanto's death, and Yanto being kind of riddled with bullets before collapsing in front of the new rift manipulator. And when the imprisoned Jack sees this, his rage and grief give him the power to rip free of his bonds and free himself from that contraption. And he grabs a security guard's weapon and shoots up the rift manipulator, destroying it. And that explosion takes out Torchwood's new headquarters, and only Gwen and Reese survive, safe in the hospital, where Gwen is freed from the influence of the dark the moment the rift manipulator explodes. So that timeline is set right at that point.
Yeah, so Gwen and Yanto awaken from their nightmarish visions of the future and are reunited with Jack and Billis, and also Idris, who has resisted possession by the elemental forces. So they enter number 6 Coburg Street, which Gwen momentarily sees as a stitch in time due to the influence of the perception filter that had kept the house safe for Billis until the moment when he needed it.
And a stitch in time is Billis's, clockwork shop.
Yeah. And Billis uses the diary to draw the light out of the partygoers, explaining that he arranged the reconstruction and street party in order to lure in human hosts who would store the light until he was ready to release it. And unfortunately, he didn't anticipate that the dark would also possess some of the partygoers, and he can't afford to draw it out of Owen and Tosh, for fear that it will read his mind and learn his plan to defeat it. Idris, though, volunteers to host the dark, while Billis and Torchwood set their plan in motion because Idris doesn't know the plan.
And very kind of Idris to do that.
Yes! Convenient.
So Billis then transfers the dark particles out of Owen and Tosh and into Idris, and Jack sends the shaken Owen and Tosh back to the hub to recuperate and to wire Billis's containment box up to the rift manipulator, almost functioning like a ghost trap in Ghostbusters. And Billis watches over the possessed Idris while Jack, Gwen, and Yanto go to the Millennium Stadium and use the antenna on top of that building to fine-tune the power of the rift so that they can defeat the dark particles. And as Billis had intended, the Millennium Stadium's antenna draws in all of the dark particles, which are possessing various human hosts, including Idris. But when the dark tries to pour through the aerial into the rift, it instead gets diverted into the containment box underneath the hub. And then Billis then releases the light from the diary and pours it through the rift to restore the balance in order to keep the remaining demon, Puckham, trapped inside. And Abaddon is kind of like a gray being, and Puckham is like this blue being, so that's how you can tell them apart.
So once the light and the dark have gone, the Torchwood operatives return to Chitauri to find that earthquakes and fire have reduced the neighbourhood to rubble. And most of the partygoers have fled, which is fair enough, really. And Billis has vanished, and the dazed Idris asks Jack to give him the most powerful amnesia pill that Torchwood has, in the hope that this time it will actually work, wipe his memories. So Jack does so, and the others return to the hub to encase the box of dark in a block of concrete. And 3 weeks later, Idris gets a phone call out of the blue, offering him a new job in Berlin, and decides the time has come to broaden his horizons. As he boards the plane, he sees Jack watching him from a distance, but doesn't remember who he is. He also doesn't remember Billy's manager, even when the old man sits next to him on the plane, carrying a wooden box, and telling Idris that he is taking his lord's ashes away to be interred elsewhere. And that is where the Twilight Streets ends. What did you make of that?
Well, it started off quite well.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, it kind of unraveled a bit the farther along it went. And for me, I struggled to understand what the author's point of view was in terms of, like, you know, is this just a fun adventure? Is he trying to say something more? Because, like, at one point, gentrification's mentioned.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be some sort of, like, neighborhood political sort of story. But it's not. It's just kind of remarks that it's happening, and there isn't any sort of, like, broader social commentary on that point. And despite the cover, there was a distinct lack of clowns in this one.
Well, just as well, eh?
What were your kind of initial impressions about it?
So I enjoyed it. It, for me, kind of like evoked Cardiff. And the characters felt true to their televised selves, I would say. Well, certainly the regulars. I can't remember Idris particularly. I enjoyed the fact that it was a mystery set within, like, a neighbourhood. That it always gave it, like, a sense of scale, because it was like this weird area of Cardiff, and it was this mystery that Jack had obviously kept on prodding at over the years, and then it suddenly engulfs him. And I enjoyed the epicness of it, the fact that we were seeing stuff throughout history, and including, you know, those possible futures, which I greatly enjoyed. But I could see if you're possibly not enjoying them, you might think those are a bit indulgent or a bit redundant, maybe.
Well, to your point, they reminded me a little bit of Days of Future Past.
Yes.
kind of the Torchwood version of that.
Yeah.
And the alternate timeline reminded me a little bit of both Turn Left, as well as Gary's later work, Big Bang Generation, which also featured an alternate timeline that collapsed.
Yeah.
The opening prologue was a bit of misdirection because you have this school kid evacuating London from the Blitz, and that didn't really go anywhere. And a few scenes later, he's being dissected. So that put me off a little bit from the beginning. I did appreciate, like you said, the characters all rang true. I also thought Gary's Vanish side really came out to shine. You can tell he's been on the Torchwood hub set because, you know, every room gets an official name. He talks about the autopsy room and the hothouse and the boardroom.
Yeah.
And even the minor set decoration changes between seasons 1 and 2. Gary explains as renovations led by Gwen while she was in charge and Jack was off at the end of time in Utopia.
Yeah.
You know, I did appreciate how he was pulling those threads together and connecting all those dots.
Yeah.
I guess just the story and Billis's involvement and the other demon, those bits kind of just felt like a retread of the season 1 finale to me, in a sense, because we're kind of getting like another version of that, because there was a second demon monster trying to break through. When I picked this book, I was hoping for more information about Billis, and I feel like it delivered on that sense.
Yeah.
And I guess, for me, I feel like it's, if I was going to score this one, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
It's light on the plot, but it does have some good slice of life character interactions.
Yeah.
And fleshes out Billis. In my mind, I guess the second half had a lack of a sense of urgency, and I was hoping for it to, you know, become more intense and like build up to like a climax sort of deal. That just kind of petered out for me, I guess.
It's interesting because I did find it intense.
Huh.
Yeah, so I think because I was so wrapped up in the what is happening with this neighbourhood, and also I was greatly enjoying the future vision, because it was showing across history, I did greatly enjoy it. Also as well, you were saying like what the message is of the book. So I was just thinking now, I mean, I wonder whether it is that we are all shades of grey, we could all be heroes, we could all be villains, possibly. because but Billis at one point says 1 out of 10 times I might be on the same side as you.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether there is a message in that. So therefore, yes, that prologue is a bit of a misdirection, but it's showing that Torchwood themselves can be quite villainous. I mean, it's something that people know, but it's there as a reminder, as I say, look, they're not all sweetness and light.
Yeah, that's true. Huh.
So.
I'm going to revise my score and give it a 6.
Excellent. I've talked you up.
It's a 6 for me.
Yeah, but I think the fact that you have to think your way through it to kind of go, is that the message? Yeah, I think that's the message. Yeah, it shows a bit of weakness. But I think I'm going to be more generous. I think I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
Because it felt like Cardiff, and like the history, apart from Chitauri, the history was just spot on. I was trying to figure out in my mind actually physically where Chitauri is. Kind of in Cardiff, but it did just feel accurate, and it wasn't like that they were in anywhere other than Cardiff. Just from this story could only really happen there, which I think sometimes with some of the Torchwood episodes, it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere in the countryside or things like that. Where here, it just felt like Cardiff.
Yeah. I agree with you there. Location and setting and all of that rang really true. And yeah, it also made me want to look up some of the restaurants you mentioned to see if they're still in business.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the wider world building as well. I mean, bringing in, it's a Gary Russell book, so there will be continuity references, but it was done moderately subtly. So the fact that we have Idris, and I couldn't really remember Idris, but I went, yeah, all right, fair enough. I mean, I wasn't at all sure whether Idris would have been on the episode Boomtown, so I actually did some Googling and went, oh, okay, yeah, that was an actor.
The bit I remember about him is where Eccleston says to him, she's escaping out the window, isn't she? And he goes, yeah, she is.
Yeah. But it just makes it all feel a bit more lived in. So, and I kind of think if Torchwood had more stories like this, then I think I would certainly have fonder memories of it. But then again, I've not heard too many of the big finishes, and the fact that big finish is kind of tying into the books from what you're saying, that kind of makes me perhaps more inclined to give those a go, because this was unlike some of the earlier Torchwoods. This was mature, but not in a kind of a teenage boy sense of mature, but actually thought through. There wasn't a lot of gratuity.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of gratuitous nudity or violence or anything. So even if at some points it got a bit shocking, but you're like, yeah, I get this from the context.
That was fun, and it's always nice to have a pick where we don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't. I don't think we went into wild disagreement. But as I was reading it, I was thinking that I'm probably enjoying this more than you were.
Yeah, I found the second half a bit of a struggle to complete.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did appreciate a lot of the filling in the gaps, I think, of... And it very much felt like, a mid-season 2 missing episode almost. So,
yes.
In that sense, it, hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, but it was filling in the gaps, but not in a complete, not in a Han Solo movie kind of way.
Right, yeah. More kind of broad brush strokes.
Yes.
Kind of, filling in some of the framework.
Yeah, leaving room for others to carry on playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still have all those Big Finish audios with Murray Melvin to get my Billis Manger fixed.
Yes.
To see what else happens with that character.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I'd forgotten about him. And then I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, he was creepy, wasn't he?
Cool. Well, that is the Twilight Streets.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to listener feedback?
Yes, let's.
All right, Chris. So we have not one, but 2 emails this month. I think I'll take and read the first one from Van Turner.
Yes.
About Shroud of Sorrow, if you want to take the second one. So Van writes, an amazing coincidence has happened. As I was listening to your review of the Wintertime Paradox, I wonder if you had ever reviewed Shroud of Sorrow. And I was prepared to go through your list of episodes when, bang, you announced you're reviewing it for January. Hooray! I first read this book in 2013, the 50th anniversary year, and I remember standing in a bookstore looking at 3 books, of which this was one. I don't recall what the other 2 were, but I remember not being enthused by them. I think I picked Shroud of Sorrow because it seemed more original than the other 2. I read it and was truly touched by it and what the doctor had to do. I wrote a review about it at the time, which I sadly can't find. I read it again about 2 years later in 2015, and he posted a review on Doctor Who Online. Ends up giving doesn't look like he gives it a score, but he says he thought Tommy Donbovan got the Matt Smith characterization of the 11th Doctor spot on, and it's such a big adventure that takes place in such a small area. Yeah, he says he highly recommends the book, and he says, it occurs to me that Shroud of Sorrow has echoes of Rings of Akatan, so he hasn't reread it for the review of the upcoming episode, but he's eager to hear our take on this great book, and he says, happy reading, Van Turner.
Cool.
So I don't think we ended up liking it as much as you did, Van, but hopefully you enjoyed our review nonetheless.
Yeah.
One thought that came to mind after we had recorded that episode, the structure of the book in 2 halves, the first half of the book focusing on grief and the second half, where the clowns show up, very much reminded me of the comedy and tragedy masks. And I feel like, had Tommy Donbovan labeled them Book 1 Tragedy and Book 2 Comedy, I feel like that would have gone a long way in terms of me reconciling, kind of the tonal shifts between the 2.
Yeah, I can see how that could work. But I think if you're doing a transition, it's a lot easier to move from comedy to tragedy. Because I think I've said before, there's a fantastic Justice League comic from like 1990 that starts out hilariously and then ends with Despero possibly about to kill Martian Manhunter, having killed Gypsy's parents, and I just remember being absolutely amazed by how like a single comic could have something hilarious and then like be really gripping and serious by the end, and it is easier to do that transition, I think.
And the way it was done in the novel was it started off with the tragedy first and then moved to the comedy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, at which point you're just going to go, what? So we've also heard from Kenny Smith from Pieces of Eight, who sent us an email to say a massive thank you for our mention of the 5th season Pieces of Eight. And he says, we put a lot of work into that run with the first 18 EDAs and a handful of short trips with the Doctor and Sam. And Kenny says, I'm so pleased it went down so well with people who love the books. And he also adds that, as I write, we're well underway on doing interviews for the second phase of the EDABU. Does that work? The 8th Doctor Adventures Bookomatic Universe? No, probably not. He says that he hopes that will be dropping in the spring. Thanks us for our kind words about it and says it makes it all worthwhile. And so it is always good to hear from listeners. So I know
definitely.
Yeah. And Kenny says that he loved our episode on the Shroud of Sorrow, and he says that he's with me on this one. He loved the first half, but as soon as the clown showed up, he didn't enjoy it as much. And he said the name Wobblebottom does still make him grin and would be a great phrase for Rowan Atkinson to say. But yeah, he's not wrong. And he said that he agreed with both of us. It would be fantastic to have had a second novel from Tommy, who he remembers as an absolute gent. Kenny says that he didn't know Tommy well, but they've spoken quite a few times through Facebook. And apparently he wrote the panto in the town where Kenny worked at the time, Rutherglen, which is where Andrew Smith of Full Circle is from. He says, as always, keep up the good work, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on Twilight Streets. Well, you've heard them. We're not in agreement.
Thanks, Kenny. That was a fantastic email.
Yes, thank you so much.
Do we have any comments or feedback on Facebook?
No, the occasional likes and Lauren plugging the reader for last month because I hadn't actually put it in the Facebook post. So thank you again, Anna Rose. And given that you were plugging Gallifrey 1, dear listener, possibly if you're in the Derby area, the weekend of, I think it's like the 18th of February. Is that a weekend?
I think it's the same weekend as Gallifrey 1, yeah.
Yes, the same weekend as Gallifrey 1. So Anna Rose James and Lauren and I and a few other mysteriously familiar voices will be at the UK Ghost Festival in Derby. So pop along and say hi. And if you see a small, blonde, long-haired bloke wandering around, then that's probably me.
So, listeners, you have your choice of events to see Chris and I at this weekend.
Yes. I'm likely to be able to do both.
Excellent. On the Twitter side, we got a nice note from Jeff Elston, who says, I just listened to your last podcast on my afternoon walk, referring to Shroud of Sorrow, and he says, that book sounded a bit dire. But we can laugh about it, right? Which is kind of the spirit of the book, I think.
Yes, yeah.
So, Chris, I think that brings us to our pick for March, which is your pick.
Yes, yeah. So I picked Shroud of Sorrow for my sins because it's an anniversary story. So I thought, I want to carry on this anniversary theme. So I am going to go for the book that helps celebrate the 35th anniversary of Doctor Who.
Okay.
So, Matt, we are going to go to Beige Planet Mars, as written by Lance Parkin and Mark Clapham, which is one of the Benny Summerfield New Adventures.
Huh. Cool. And that has a fantastic cover.
It does. It has a brilliant cover.
Yeah, kind of it looks like a canal or waterway on Mars.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, in my mind, without knowing anything about it, evokes, is this going to be Ice Warriors related? I have no idea.
Yeah. So,
and this was at the tail end of the Benny run, I think.
It's coming towards, yes. Yeah. But the next book is one in which the status quo gets violently shaken. But it's earlier in the run than Dead Romance.
Ah, okay, yeah. I was thinking Where Angels Fear was Twilight of the Gods, but yeah, it was okay.
No.
Huh. Yeah, excellent. Well, so for March, we'll be reading Beige Planet Mars.
Yes.
And until next month, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. Happy reading. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song Doctor Who Theme Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. Help other listeners to find us by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
Because it's kind of like a police witness statement, it's quite cool because you do sound like you are being recorded rather than necessarily like as if we're right in the room, but that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that works well.
Thank you so much for arranging it and everything too.
Yes. It's incredibly hard finding, I know loads of Welsh women. I'd found a part that I thought this probably works best and doesn't have a lot of dialogue of loads of different Torchwood people. And then I was thinking, great, I don't think I know any Welsh men. So, yes, then I remembered Yorkie. Anyway, right.
Thank you so much. Is it Yorkie, you said?
Yes, Yorkie, yeah.
Thank you so much, Yorkie, for reading that.
This tells this doesn't tell Yorkie's version of events, no. This tells Owen's version of events.
Thank you.